Welcome back to the Morning Mindset edition of the Live, Build, Change podcast. This is a podcast that is designed to help us every morning align our thinking with the truth of God. And yesterday, if you did not hear yesterday's episode, it's the beginning of a new series we're doing from now up through the time of Christmas, where we're looking at the actual biblical Christmas story in a chronological fashion. So we're looking at the events and the people involved, starting at the very beginning. And that's where we began yesterday with the story of Zechariah and Elizabeth. And I read the passage from Luke chapter 1. So go back there and listen so you can know the context for this episode. What we found was this aged couple, Elizabeth and Zechariah, were childless. And Zechariah, serving as a priest, went into the temple to do his service in burning incense and the ritual that is involved around that in the Jewish religion. And an angel of God, Gabriel, appeared to him and told him that God had heard his prayers and was going to give a child to his wife Elizabeth. And Zechariah found it hard to believe, and he questioned the angel. How could this really happen? And because of his lack of belief, his lack of faith, that God could and would do what he had said he was going to do, the angel said, until the child is born, you will be struck dumb, meaning he can't speak. And from that moment, when Zechariah came out of the temple and all the people were gathered around, he could not speak. And he motioned to them, and they reasoned he had seen a vision, which indeed, he'd seen more than a vision. He'd seen an angel of God. Now, what are the significance of this story, and what are the things we are to learn from it? Well, it's obvious, first of all, that we want to be people of faith. We want to believe God to do what God says he will do. Right? To doubt God is, in essence, to call him a liar. To doubt God is to, in essence, say our wisdom and reasoning about the circumstance or the situation is more comprehensive or wiser than his. Now, I understand doubting is a natural human thing. It's something we come by very easily. I mean, Zechariah's situation, it was a very natural thing. I mean, here he was, an old man. His wife was an old woman. They were well beyond their childbearing years. And though they had heard the stories like that of Abraham, who he and Sarah had a child of promise well into their 90s, Zechariah, on a personal level, still saw those just as stories. They were just recountings of something in the past, and those kinds of things can become very detached from us as a person. They can become just this concept, rather than an illustration and an example of a real-life scenario where we too can be challenged to have faith even when it doesn't make logical sense to us. And most of the time I have found that's what faith really is. Faith doesn't always make logical sense in terms of what we're asked to believe. Yet, the very basis of faith is a very logical thing. And that is that the God of the universe has spoken, has promised, he is ultimately trustworthy, and therefore we can believe what he says, even though we can't reason out how what he says is going to happen. Zechariah's situation reminds me of myself in so many ways. So many times I've doubted, so many times I have questioned what God has said in his word is true. And I don't want to be a person like that anymore. Do you? Do you want to be the doubting, floundering, failing kind of a person, or do you want to be a person who takes God at his word? Because as we see in Zechariah's story, God's word came true. It will always come true. And so I challenge you today, as you face this day, trust your God, whose word is faithful and will come true. Let's talk about the Christmas story again tomorrow.